Could it be a worst-case scenario for Egypt? At least 51 killed at a dawn protest outside the barracks where ousted President Mohamed Morsi is thought to be held. The army denies a Muslim Brotherhood claim that soldiers sprayed demonstrators with bullets while they were praying. The Brotherhood supporters aren't blinking. Nearly a week after the military ousted Egypt's first democratically elected president, they're still rallying, like here, in huge numbers outside Cairo's Rabaa al-Adawiya Mosque. This Monday's bloodbath prompting the Salafist Al-Nur party to suspend participation in coalition talks. This after rejecting the choice of liberal standard-bearer Mohamed El-Baradei as prime minister. Now, that could dampen the hopes of a broad coalition to pull the country out of its crisis. At a Monday press conference, the army warned against anyone, quote, threatening national security. This on the day when the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party called for an uprising against those who, quote, want to steal your revolution and tanks and vehicles. Today, in the France 24 debate, can Egypt avoid a civil war? With us from London, Hani El-Deeb. He's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party. Thank you for joining us here in Paris. We're joined former France 24 Cairo correspondent Igal Sadoun. Welcome, sir. Now mostly based in New York.
Yes, indeed.
At the United Nations. Welcome back to the show to Barbara Slavin of the Atlantic Council, who also contributes to almonitor.com. Thank you for being with us. The France 24 debate, where you can join the discussion on Facebook and on Twitter. Our hashtag F24debate. Once again, conflicting versions of what transpired early in the day in Cairo near that Republican Guard barracks. France 24's Gallagher Fenwick went to the scene. Here's what one eyewitness told him.
We were praying peacefully in front of the Republican Guard. We weren't causing any problems. We were with our wives, children, babies. We were doing the very first prayer of the day. As we went to kneel, the special forces attacked us. They came from the headquarters of the Republican Guards. They had guns, they had tear gas, they used armored vehicles, and they began shooting at us. They came from every side. They were just shooting.
Well, let's go now to the Egyptian capital and correspondent Catherine Stapley. Catherine, the army's got a whole different version of what happened.
They have indeed. We heard from the army spokesman a little while ago. Now, according to him, it was the protesters, the pro-Morsi camp, who attacked the Republican Guard. First of all, they threw stones and Molotov cocktails. This is what the army spokesman has been saying. And then he says that the Republican Guard were fired on by unknown men from a building above where they were. Now, he said that this resulted in the death of 2 officers and that 40 other officers were injured, some of them critically. Now, he also at that press conference showed video evidence of what he says happened. And he also claimed that he blamed religious leaders for inciting and provoking supporters of Mohamed Morsi to attack military installations. Now, of course, we've also heard today from another press conference given by the Muslim Brotherhood up at the Rabaa al-Adawiya Mosque, which is where they have been holding a sit-in for well over 10 days now, demanding that the ousted President Morsi is reinstated. Now, what they said happened was that they were peacefully praying in the street outside the Republican Guard headquarters. They were doing the first prayer of the day, the dawn prayer, and that the Republican Guard opened fire on them with live ammunition, and that's when these fatalities occurred. And they claim that women and children were also killed in this attack. That's something that the army has denied today at that press conference. So you can see the conflicting narratives that we're getting. Now, the interim president, Adli Mansour, has today announced there will be a judicial inquiry as to what happened. So maybe that will shed some light on both of these narratives.
Catherine, we're showing up on the screen those live images from that huge demonstration taking place across town. Behind you, Catherine, far sparser crowd on Tahrir Square than we saw last week.
Yeah, absolutely. What you can hear behind me right now is the evening prayer being sung and being recited. And there are probably about 30 to 40 people down there in the square behind me. People are not coming out tonight. And that's a similar story, actually, across Cairo. Cairo is usually a very, very busy city, and we've really not been seeing that over the past few days, apart from at the big protests. I mean, today, the traffic, for instance, it's very difficult to get around town. It's always bumper to bumper, but there's just no traffic on the roads. People are really battening down the hatches. They're afraid to go out. I think people aren't going to work. They're just staying at home. And we're expecting that Ramadan may start tomorrow or the next day. And so usually you'd have people out there stocking up, getting in their provisions, ready to break their fast for Ramadan. And really that's not happening. So I think there's a lot of fear and anticipation and fear of clashes and violence going on here in Cairo.
There is the sense at this point then that the atmosphere has shifted from one of a standoff to one of, how would you say, apprehension across the city. Is it the same across the country as well?
I think there is a lot of apprehension across the country too, yes. I mean, certainly in Suez there were no demonstrations yesterday, different areas. People are staying at home in anticipation of Ramadan, but, you know, we've seen vicious clashes in other cities, not only in Cairo, the deaths that we saw last night. Over the past week, so many people have died in clashes between the pro and anti-Morsi camps in Alexandria, in Zagazig. We've also had attacks on police stations in the Sinai Peninsula. So these fears are not unfounded that violence could happen.
Catherine Stapley, thanks for that live update, and you'll continue to update us throughout here on France 24. Now, at that army press conference that Catherine was mentioning earlier, this warning issued not once, but twice by the military spokesperson.
The armed forces, with all their means, will help the police to defend the country from the inside and from the outside. The army will not let anyone threaten Egypt's national security.
Before we go to Hani El-Deeb in London, I just want to welcome at this point Shainaz Abdel Salam, who almost fell prey to Paris traffic, but managed to make it. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Shainaz, an activist, member of the Al-Dustur Party, the Constitution Party of Mohammed al-Baradei. Thank you for being with us. Hani El-Deeb, we just heard there the army spokesperson saying he won't let anybody threaten national security. How do you interpret that statement?
Forget about the statement. Let's speak about the reality. The reality is there has been a military coup. How in any democratic country power transfer happen is not through some demonstration in the street and then the army council come and take over and say this is supporting revolution. Last week the popularity actually of the French government is only 23%. Does it mean if we have some demonstration in the street, the military leaders in France will make a military coup and say this is because they was wanted? So this is the whole issue, is about the, as you said rightly, the first democratic elected president military coup against them. Because if we're going to acknowledge this is a way of changing Egypt, that with any problems, demonstration in the street, and then the military will decide is the county enough to change the whole regime or not. And then you continue to have all of these lies. And I'm speaking about now facts. Over the last 5 days, the achievement of this military coup and the associate from al-Baradei team and the others are more than 100 being killed, at least 90% are Muslim Brotherhood supporters, closing all the TV channels related to all Islamic supporters and the other nationals. At the same time, hundreds of injured and another hundreds of being arrested, and closing even websites and magazines. This is the freedom that we are having under Al-Dustur and military coup team happening in Egypt. So when you are saying today, even if we say there has been some terrorism, let us just be saying these nasty things. Okay, there are some terrorists among the demonstrators. Will the Muslim Brotherhood support bring with them their children and their women to be killed? Even if there are terrorists
There's no
with
children
them,
killed, huh?
There is
And
no children
the
killed.
photo on the Ikhwan Online website, it was from Syria, by the way.
Please try to be polite. And
Yeah, I'm
speak when
polite,
I'm
but
calling,
just you are
okay?
saying
So try to
lying
be
things.
polite,
You are
okay?
lying, so
the 100
I have
people
to
that have been
reply.
killed here is a Dastur daughter and your daughter and your mother-in-law and your son-in-law. Please be polite, okay? Who those people who are being killed are supporters of Morsi, killed by the army. Even
No, they
you
are
have
not killed by
terrorist
the army.
attack and
We need
terrorist
investigation.
attack and hostage, the army has to respect that there are actually some hostage taken alongside that and don't taking all of this firing. The army know how to deal with this. If he doesn't know, he has to go out. So I'm sorry, we are here dealing with a military coup, with people trying to jump into power without any. This is your own opinion while sitting there in the air condition.
This is
okay?
your own opinion.
I'm sorry.
Also. It's not a
This
military
is the
coup.
opinion of the whole world to understand how change happened in a democratic country. Does this happen in any other country in the world? You have seen it ever?
Okay.
I'm sorry. You have to respect the others and you express your opinion only.
Let me
I'm asking simple questions now.
But
Hani Aldib, let me pick up on one point that Hani Aldib made, which is the closure of television stations of religious media. That is a fact. Before the press conference today that we were talking about even got started, an incident broke out among the reporters, journalists calling for the Al Jazeera correspondent to be kicked out of that press conference. It was a lot of confusion at that point. The army spokesperson at the podium reminding everyone Egypt's a democracy with free speech, but eventually that didn't prevent that correspondent from effectively getting kicked out of that press conference.
Yeah, this is something I don't. It's not. It's the journalists who were there. They do this. This is not my. I mean,
do you condemn
Do you
condemn
that? Of course, they shouldn't do it. They shouldn't do it. But this is not This is not the main issue. The main issue is that during the last days, we have all the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood calling for violence, telling to their to the people who are pro-Morsi, are you ready to die for your president? The arm they found there was a lot of arms in the place where they are sitting in. So it was really going to violence anyway, and we called from the beginning, you should not take arms when you go to make a pacific manifestation or a pacific sit-in, and it was not, they didn't listen to us, and we told the Muslim Brotherhood and all the pro-Morsi, you are a part of Egypt, we are all this together, we have to continue together. So they want the war.
Okay.
This is a problem.
Hani Aldib, realistically, how do we stop further bloodshed?
Further bloodshed is by resuming back the freely elected president.
This is impossible.
And then we have negotiated. This is your opinion.
This is impossible.
This is your opinion. I am sorry. I will ask you.
Morsi was talking.
Please, let him speak.
Please stop it. Okay. I let you speak. Please learn to be polite. You are living in a civilized country.
And you are talking a lot, Mr. Hani. You are talking a lot. You should give the others a chance to talk also.
When it comes your time, just talk.
No, you are talking a lot, much more than me.
Please.
What I'm trying to say here, sir, that if we ask what is the percentage of the votes that at the Dastur party and all of the opposition parties...
I'm not talking about Dastur. I'm Egyptian here and you are Egyptian and we have to find a solution for this.
Please.
Because he's talking about Dastur. I'm Egyptian now. We are in a crisis.
Please, let's listen to him, please. Hani Aldib, go ahead.
Go on, Mr. Hani.
Say that we go to the election voting. When we went for there 4 times, one for the assemblies, and one for the parliament, and one for the constitution, in all of these things, the majority of the Egyptians are supporting the pro-Islamic and national parties. All of the parties that speak about opposition, they never go to election. Why you don't want to go for election? Because they don't have ground. This is why you have to use the army. We told them there is actually election in 3 to 4 months. Go there, take majority in the parliament, kick Morsi out.
There is a petition of 22 million Egyptians who said we don't want Morsi anymore.
Who is going to making the counting? You are making the counting. Are you taking your camera? This is how done in the world. People go on the street and someone count and say who is the majority.
Petition. It's a direct democracy. You don't know about this, maybe.
Please, let me bring in at this point Igal Sadoun. Igal, you heard at the beginning of our show, Catherine Stapley described the eerie calm that had descended on most neighborhoods of Cairo, people in fear. It's a far cry from the Cairo that you often experienced.
Yes, and I have to say that it's really, I don't mean to equate between the two sides because obviously it's very different. You cannot compare a party like the Freedom and Justice Party which is the political arm of the Brotherhood, and also the military, and even the 22 millions who signed that petition. But there's a sense of déjà vu with these events. Last week, when I saw the headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood being burned, I felt I was in Cairo on the 20th of January when I saw the National Democratic Party being burned, and I felt the army didn't want to protect the headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood, like they didn't want to protect the National Democratic Party. And I have to say that Morsi, on one side, and the army have had in the past 2 years similar tendencies to extend their powers, to take some liberties with the constitution. And it's quite ironic because Shahinaz Abdel Salam is a very, very prominent activist who was probably behind the movement that led to the revolution that toppled Hosni Mubarak. Shahinaz Abdel Salam is a very important character in Egyptian politics, and it's ironic to see you today defend the army. The same army.
The army. Why you are saying I'm defending the army? I'm not defending the army.
What happened? It is an impression.
It was a good act from the army to come in after 30 July to protect the legitimacy of the people. But what's happening today, I feel it's very sad. And what's happening today is really, for me, is not normal, because you have civilian people with arms and an army treating civilian people with arms. This is really a very complicated situation. So we need investigation. We need to know what happened, because the blood of Egyptian, military or civil, we shouldn't give it like this. We should have something. We should have stopped.
Could you please give him a time to talk?
It is very interesting, and also it is equally ironic to hear the Muslim Brotherhood, who defends Morsi, who, how can I say this? He granted himself very wide powers above the judiciary, and now to hear the Muslim Brotherhood say that it's a military coup, that the constitution needs to be protected, that you defend democracy, I have a feeling that between the military, the Brotherhood, where is the Egyptian people? Where are the people who just want to have a good living? And that's the feeling I have in that situation.
And of course, it's a very volatile situation. It's changing all the time. This message from Krok Lardi on Twitter: can a strong political renewal be created without the Muslim Brotherhood? Democracy would be endangered by excluding them, right? We'll be right back, and we'll ask Barbara Slavin in Washington what she thinks. Stay with us. It's the France 24 debate.